Indian brand typically evolves the concept keeping Indian consumer in mind. Even if you look at Domino's or a McDonald's, they spent a lot of time and effort in coming up products which were suited for Indian palate. So even if you're getting a regional brand or a well-established brand from outside, you have to have that customization done anyway. So and as Rahul rightly said, when you are doing it for homegrown brand, you have a much better chance of striking the deal because you have much more bargaining power or negotiating the terms which are favorable to fund.
Are there perspectives which the panelists may have on franchise versus management, again, as what is a better format to go with? Any specific, what do you think is better, franchise and management from a scalable and profitable perspective?
I think it's very important to get your format right. Whether it's cuisine or your locations or your standard operating procedures or your centralized kitchen. Before you get into franchising is always lucrative in terms of growing the brand at a quick pace, but probably you need to spend maybe a year or a couple of years with first 2 or 3 restaurants or whatever number that be. So I think we like models which have been very patient with their own outlets, which have committed enough number of errors or mistakes with their own outlets before they went to a stage where they're more confident of franchising. I think that's very important.
Rahul Rai?
People have been successful in both formats, whether it's franchising or company-owned stores and as franchisors. It just depends on the individual merits of a case. I think people would be happy at looking at all 3 formats, but the success stories in all and also the failures. It just depends on whether you're able to crack the proposition. But there is one aspect in franchisees which is different from the other 2 segments, is the arrangement with respect to liquidity events and change of management. That's where I see a lot of issues coming up in franchisee arrangements, because as an investor, you typically wouldn't like any fetters as regards your exit. And typically in these franchising agreements, you have these.
One more related question on the exit side. I know you spoke about exit, and this is specifically true for the foreign brands, about the need for having exit conditions. Rahul, can you throw some light on that, your experience? Rahul Rai?
Sure. For foreign companies, foreign brands which are investing in India, they are obviously most concerned about protecting their brand, and they wouldn't want that brand falling in anybody's hands. And typically for an investor, covenant is a change in management clause. It's like an event of default situation, or if certain targets are not met, or it could be a situation in which you even take up majority stake in the company. So you would be very hesitant about investing in a company in which there are fetters on ownership, because eventually you're looking for a liquidity event. So that's a bit of a tough situation. Also, additionally, the way most deals in India are done are that your valuation is determinant on future profitability. In India, typically convertible instruments are used, so your equity ownership is not known upfront. Abroad, for example, there's a very high secondaries market, but for the secondaries to take place, it's important to know whether your ultimate stake will result in a change in ownership. If you have 20% and you're looking to sell 20% to another investor, that's fine. But if you don't know whether you're going to end up with 40 or 60, then it's a situation.
Hemendra, any experiences on exit options for investors?
I would say as a financial investor, I would definitely ask for a drag at least up to 50%, if not 100%, so that I can, if I have to sell it to a strategic investor, I have that option with me. I will also include buyback for sure. If the liquidity event doesn't happen in, let's say, 5 years or 6 years, I think one has to look at that. So I think entrepreneurs also, like valuation, I would say, has to be a little more flexible on giving exit rights to investors, because financial investors have a certain horizon, maybe 4 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 7 years, but they have to exit. So I think these need to be carefully discussed, drafted, and negotiated while negotiating the valuation.
There is a challenge. When you're doing with the foreign brand a franchise arrangement, I think the number of master franchise arrangements have reduced drastically. So there was a time when the global brands used to give master franchise in India to one player. And with that, I've come across at least 2 specific cases where they had exit option by way of an IPO. And Domino's, of course, is one example of that. So they could do an IPO in India using being a master franchisee, right? It's a rare case. I've come across at least one more situation of a large global brand which did that in India for a master franchisee, but I think it's reducing. So I think if you look at the Indian versus foreign brand argument we did earlier, exit does become a challenge in the capital markets for global brands. So you should negotiate your agreements well to make sure those clauses are present for exit. If that's not an exit option, you should also be alive to the fact that any investor putting in money is seeking an exit out of this investment over a period of time. That period is typically, I would say, around 5 years. Could be lesser, could be more, depending on market and other situations. And you are duty bound to provide the exit. If you fail to recognize these things, then it will both impact your value and ability to raise money. So I think as you people seek money, it's equally important to look at exit. Things like what Hemendra mentioned, drag, and certain other conditions which are linked to, exits of investors and funds, those are more case specific. I don't want to give you any specific answer on that, but leave it to say that an Indian brand with an Indian growth story has many more exit options vis-a-vis a foreign brand.